this. I'm on 𝔓𝔩𝔲𝔬 back in here. I see everyone is enjoying the beats, the music, the sounds. Definitely taking things to another level. So as we continue forward, I will definitely be introducing more and more of this frequency that we call Universe B. So, what I wanted to bring to everyone's attention, for those who may not know, we are currently in Pluto retrograde. We have been for about 2 weeks now. Pluto went retrograde, give or take, April 25th. Now, from this perspective, if we already understand the energy of Pluto to be about force, Pluto is a higher octave of Mars. Because Pluto is a higher octave of Mars, if Mars represents the warrior on the battlefield, Pluto will be like the ninja, the assassin, who goes up close to the target and kill without being detected. Just to give an extreme example. A more light example would be being able to move about and navigate undetected. As we understand, this is why Pluto, or Hades in this case, the Greek god Hades, was given the helmet of invisibility so that he can navigate undetected. So as we see us in these times where things are highly being regulated, a skill you can add to your arsenal is being able to navigate undetected so that you don't have to suffer. Nothing has to stop for you just because on the mainstream level, everyone else may be regulated, but you don't have to. And again, this doesn't strictly have to apply to the physical realm. This can also be mental as well as spiritual. Because Pluto, or Hades, or even Asar, if you want to take it to the Egyptian pantheon, all of these energies represent the Lord of the underworld, or the infernal planes. What does this mean outside of that context? That's not something that we are not already familiar with. We already know these deities to represent these attributes. But how is this played out in real time? Because Pluto has already been a determining factor for the entire year of 2020. As we have been explaining in the previous astrology videos. I told you all of these planets are gathering around Pluto's influence, and Pluto's magnetism is keeping us really refined and contained. So we were already experiencing the attributes of Pluto this entire year. However, what does it mean when Pluto goes retrograde? So on top of Pluto already representing the dark side, give or take, just to simplify it, if Pluto already represents a bridge to the underworld, or a bridge to the darkness, a bridge to the chaos, what happens when this energy becomes retrograde? For those who may not understand what a retrograde is, from my perspective, this is when a planet is purifying itself. So the planet appears to be moving backwards. So when a planet is in retrograde, it appears to be moving backwards. So this stage of purification, or this alchemical process that every planet has to experience, we begin to understand from this perspective, because Pluto already represents refinement, having a militant mind, I can explain it this way, having a militant mind but refined. So you're not going out lashing out as Mars would do, because Mars represents the tower if we want to take it to the tarot. So if Mars represents the tower, the lightning bolt that's striking the tower, what will Pluto represent? Because obviously Pluto doesn't have a traditional association with the tarot until you update it. Once you update it, Pluto begins to be associated with the Judgment card or the Aeon card, depending on which tarot you use. In most tarot decks, it would be the Judgment card. So if Pluto is the Judgment card, what are the attributes of judgment? What happens when you are judged? Of course, all throughout history, we have this judgment process, whether your heart is being weighed by the scale or you're getting judged by God, angels, so on and so forth. They're writing down all of your deeds, so on and so forth. This energy of judgment has already been explained all throughout history, all types of religion. But let's take it to the occult perspective. What does it mean from a spiritual, mental, and physical perspective? We clearly see that the world is being purified by force. It's not a willing submission, it's a forced submission. And because we have been forced to submit, we are clearly seeing how the entire atmosphere is becoming purified. The earth is going through a purification. Well, we can attribute that purification to Pluto's influence. And now that Pluto has become retrograde, Pluto's retrograde will last until October 6th of this year. So keep that in mind as well. So this retrograde will have a long-term effect. So during this period, during these months of Pluto retrograde, Pluto is the refined warrior once again. When that refined warrior has to purify himself or herself, what occurs? The purification process is when this warrior goes internal. When this warrior experiences a dimension of implosion. Implosion is when you have to go inside to seek your answers. Where there is nowhere to go, there is no one to meet, there is nothing to do. The only thing you can do is go inside your own chambers. So Pluto, the refined warrior, now has to battle the internal chaos that we call the unconscious mind. So Pluto now is battling the chaos as opposed of, you can say, sitting on a throne, being the ruler of the underworld. Now Pluto has to rise from the throne during the retrograde and purify itself from being immersed in the underworld. So even Pluto, being the lord of the underworld, has to purify itself every now and again. So this process, or this alchemical energy that we are all experiencing, some form or another, this goes into the zodiac attributes. From an Eastern perspective, Pluto is in Sagittarius. From a Western perspective, Pluto is in Capricorn. So let's explore both perspectives so that we get a holistic view of what is occurring. We can look at it then as a cusp. Pluto, from a Sagittarian perspective, will purify all things related to the ninth house. We know the ninth house to represent religion, long distance travel, teaching, universities, so on and so forth. All of these things are being hit the hardest. If we have been checking out all of the news, the universities being sued because everyone has to take classes online. It's not the same experience, but you're paying the same money. So it's really a real lawful thing going on because the ninth house also represents the law. There are a lot of laws and bills being passed on a daily basis. at a more rapid pace because we don't have the ability, or we have canceled out the process that we are normally adjusted or accustomed to. Now things are moving a lot more rapid. We can attribute that rapid movement to Uranus because we know Uranus is the energy of this year being 2020. 2 plus 2 gives us the 4. Then 4 takes us to Uranus. 4 can also take you to Rahu or Medusa, as previously explained. These energies of the demon rising to the throne. Rahu was a demon that rose to immortality. Medusa became a demon after first being a purified priestess. A purified priestess becomes a demon. Then Uranus, if we are not familiar with the story of Uranus, Uranus gets his genitals cut off after swallowing his children. So he essentially becomes androgynous. He can no longer be fully masculine. He has to submit to the feminine force. So during all of these examples, we see this energy of transformation. So Pluto's energy purifies, you can say, the ninth house from the Eastern perspective. From the Western perspective of the Capricorn, Pluto will have an effect on the 10th house. The 10th house is the house of career. So we also see Pluto affecting everyone's career because we see the amount of job loss. We see the amount of uncertainty. We have no idea what's going to happen. Well, that's what they say. Of course, once we have the eyes, we know everything. So we can just assume we have no say-so. Again, we can use the occult to navigate gracefully and not have to deal with what everyone says or what's going on. So this is why I constantly try to introduce you to the routes that allow you to navigate where you are not harmed, because you have the power of not just the spirit, not just your mentalism, but also the physical power. Because what's the purpose or the point of being connected with the spirits and being at a heightened or higher consciousness without any physical power? However, when we look at the ancestors, when we look at any type of older religion or tradition, they had established power. From this perspective, power has never been separated or separate from your spiritual or occult practice. So power and obtaining and maintaining power has never been separate. But power comes at the expense of war, meaning you have to engage in some type of warfare, some type of Martian or Mars energy. That's why Pluto is the refinement of Mars. Pluto knows how to handle things in the dark. Pluto knows how to handle things in the chaos. So Pluto is not going to run up on you with a sword, or run up on you with a gun, or run up on you with a stroll. Pluto is going to accomplish what needs to be done in the chaos without you even knowing what happened till it's already done. So from that perspective, it gives you a freedom of motion once you understand how to navigate the chaos. And Pluto is that bridge to understanding how to navigate when you are amongst darker energies that we are not accustomed or adjusted to. So we are in the times where we are in energies that we are not adjusted or accustomed to. So Pluto becomes this bridge to the chaos for us to comprehend this is what you need to do in these types of circumstances. Let's get back to Pluto in the 10th house, because the 10th house not only represents career, it also represents our public image. So you can say also the public image is in question because no one is able to really navigate and move like they are accustomed to. So any type of public image is super hard to maintain. So it's hard to not only maintain your public image, it's also hard to maintain all the attributes of the ninth house. Any type of teaching, any type of university, any type of travel. Travel is being hit very hard. Any type of foreign negotiations, foreign exchanges and negotiations we see is all types of madness going on. There's all type of chaos essentially in the ninth and the 10th houses, Sagittarius and Capricorn. So now that Pluto has entered into the retrograde of this already forceful energy, so now Pluto has awakened from the throne. So before then, Pluto was doing all this strictly with the magnetism. Now that Pluto is in retrograde and will be in retrograde once again till October 6th of this year. Now Pluto is making these movements from an awakened state. So Pluto is in motion, in this case, moving backward, moving in reverse. Pluto is moving in reverse. Do you understand the law of reversal? It's a popular thing in fashion nowadays where people invert the symbols. You know, you have a symbol when you invert it. You know, it may not be the inverted pentagram. They may not go that far with it, but, you know, people have been inverting the cross, so on and so forth. So this is not necessarily anything new. However, that's the manifestation of the law. Do you understand the mechanisms behind the law? Because once you understand the mechanisms behind the law, then you can adjust and accustom the law according to your particular distinction of what you need to see within your consciousness. When you make that particular adjustment in your mindset personally, so it's not just something you see externally, you see it internally, you can invoke the energy of Pluto. So when Pluto is away from the throne, when Pluto is in retrograde, Pluto is away from the throne. When Pluto is away from the throne, then the chaos is not as ordered as it usually is. When Pluto is on the throne, it's like anyone at a position of power. When you're sitting down at your desk, you're able to organize, plot, plan, and do everything you need to map out your strategy. You're able to strategize. So it's symbolic of strategy. When a person is sitting, thinking, strategizing, that's normally how it happens when you are on your throne. However, when you need to strategize on the move, which is what happens when you are at war. Because when you are at war, you are navigating the chaos and you could possibly be harmed. It's dangerous. You are essentially dealing with poison. The air may be poisonous, and that's what we're dealing with now. We're dealing with poison within the air. So when the poison is introduced into the air, what do? The only thing you can do is either stay away or adjust and become accustomed to the poison, become accustomed to the elixir, become accustomed to the venom. And when you become accustomed to the venom, to the virus, because virus just means poison. If we look up the etymology of virus, it just means poison. So that's why I'm introducing poison, because these are one and the same. However, poison taken in proper doses, this is what drugs are. Drugs are poison, but they are poison at proper dosage. Drugs or poison at proper dosage will produce a psychedelic experience and not just kill you. But you know, if you do too much of it, it will kill you. That's how people are able to overdose. So it is poison. So it will kill you at too much. But if you minimize the usage or the amount in which you ingest, it's still venom, it's still poison, but it's at a rate that you can adjust to. That's also what a vaccine is. Vaccines are the same thing. It introduces the poison or venom into your body, but in a state in which it will not kill you. It's introducing the virus with certain chemicals that are contained, and those contained chemicals will maintain that virus while your body learns the language of that virus. And once your body learns the language of that virus, then those chemicals that were placed to hold that virus then dissolves and that virus becomes a part of your body. It's no longer affecting you. That is the process of vaccines. All of these things are one, dealing with the poison, dealing with the venom. This is why the serpent is the most important symbol, because we always see the serpent biting its tail. When we think about the venom, we understand, okay, if we are being introduced to poison, they say either, again, I don't want to speak about conspiracy theories. As we know, people are literally being shut down out of nowhere. For those who may not know, the David Icke just was removed from YouTube and I believe Facebook because he was speaking about the virus. And you know, if you say anything against the what are the letters WHO, the WHO, the owl, then you know they're just gonna press delete. So this is why we want to make it a broader topic. We don't want to stick upon what it is or what's being said about it. Let's just speak about what we're dealing with, and that's the venom, that's the poison, that's the elixir that's needed to adjust yourself to the bridge that we call the chaos. You need to ingest the venom in order to bridge the gap of the chaos. That's why the dark side has the effect and influence it has, because it changes you. Anyone who has done any type of drugs knows that it changes you. Now, whether it's to a positive or negative effect, it's up to the health of the person. But you know that it introduces a change, but that's the purpose. It's supposed to introduce a chemical change in you, and that chemical change affects your consciousness, which affects your mood. However, if you are in control of the process, because you know how the mind works, you know how the internal structures of the atoms work. You know how to program the neurons. Again, you know the language of the body. So it's not a mystery to you. You know exactly what the chemicals do. You know exactly what's going on in your body. So you know what to do, what not to do. You know what the amounts. But that's the arts of alchemy. That's the next level of chemistry, when you know how to literally affect your own health by understanding the chemicals and the materials that you have available to you. This is how people are able to move undetected. It's one thing to buy, let's just say, a gun at a gun store. They can track that because it has a serial number. So all they have to do is track the serial number and they know exactly what's going on with it. However, what if you made one in your own home that has no serial number? Then there is no way to track it. And that's essentially what happens. That's how people are able to not connect the dots, because you can literally, you know, people have been doing this forever, creating bombs in their own garages. You know, people, when you're doing it by your own hands, meaning you're not just going to a store and buying a bomb, buying a gun, you're buying the materials, but they can't track the materials. But if you understand the materials, you know how to cook it up yourself. Now, of course, this is just a dangerous form of it. You can do it at a lighter form and heal yourself and do things of a positive nature. But I'm just introducing you to both sides of the story, because we see both sides playing out. And once you understand the dark and the light, you understand when it's time to be introduced to the venom, and you understand when it's time to be introduced to the light. So in this particular time of Pluto's retrograde, the bridge of chaos has widened, has opened for those who are willing to introduce themselves to the venom. And this venom is this current virus. We don't have to speak about the name. That is the venom. That's why they want you to put a mask so that you don't introduce yourself to it. However, what if you don't introduce yourself to the mask? That means you are willingly intaking the poison. What does that mean? Because we see that it kills. Are you going to be one of the people that die when they are introduced to the poison? Why does it kill, but it doesn't kill others? They say it determines, or it's based on your blood type. Your blood type matters. So if your blood type matters, that means it's based on genetics. Then they also say that it's killing blacks and browns. We'll just use their language at higher rates. So if it's killing blacks and browns at higher rates and it's based on your blood type, it's based on your genetics, then what is this really saying? But you have to study genetics. So we can assume, we can take it into politics or what type of theories that they're trying to push. We can go into the realm of politics. We can go into the 10th house. But let's instead go into the ninth house. What does that really mean on a chemical level? What does it mean when you are altering someone's genetics? Genetic alteration. What does that mean? Well, this introduces us to the idea of cloning, which has been discussed forever. Cloning and the alien phenomena, all these things. So, but again, these things are wider, broader topics that take a lot more time to be explained. But hopefully at this point you understand the energy of Pluto retrograde and what you can be doing on the other side of this. Understand Pluto from the ninth house perspective as well as the 10th house perspective. So Pluto introduces you to the bridge of chaos, is going to introduce you to the reverse side of the ninth house and the reverse side of the 10th house. So when you are being introduced to the reverse side of the ninth house and the reverse side of the 10th house, you're going to be in to some fun times if you are able to bear the chaos by introducing yourself into the venom. So that's the most realistic, factual, spiritual, and mental perspective that I can introduce. So from that, take what you can and do what you may. Peace.